Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to Doctor Who Flux / Series 13. It is Chapter 2, the second episode, Wolf Sontarans, and oh boy, this was an exciting one. First of all, quick thoughts, in case you haven't seen the episode yet. Very good, very entertaining, better than the first episode of this series. I thought the Sontarans are great. It's much more linear, which makes it easier to follow. The Doctor is great, Jodie Whittaker. There's a lot of good acting work in this episode. The guest historical character of Mary Seacole is great, and overall, I had a really good time with this. So those were the quick spoiler-free thoughts, which means I'm now going to jump straight into spoilers for the episode. So here is your spoiler warning in case you haven't seen the episode yet. Okay, let's jump right in. Let's talk about the main big thing of this episode. The Sontarans are back, and oh, they're so good. The Sontarans are so much fun in this episode. They have the old design from like classic Who. It does not get explained why they have that. But in my opinion, I didn't need to explain that. I mean, they're clone species, so you would kind of just assume that happens maybe at some point in time. And I think they also reference like the very first Sontaran from like back in the classic Who days, who came to like claim the plan for the Sontaran Empire, who looked basically exactly like they do in this episode, like design. So maybe you could make a connection there, but who cares? Sontarans are back, they're cool. The main setting for them is in the Crimean War. I love that they include the fact that the Sontarans can actually like travel through time. They're using that as means to like establish an empire on Earth. And the reason why they chose the Crimean War is not only because this was like a big important war, but mainly also because the main Sontaran general guy wanted to ride a horse. And I thought that was brilliant, because I would totally get that. So yeah, the Sontarans are so much fun. They're like properly intimidating. They do all the classic shouting, the commanding, it's all about fighting and honor, and you get executed and shot if you disappoint your general. It's all there. It's all out there in the open, and it's wonderful. I think the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, has fantastic chemistry with like meeting the Sontarans again, and baiting them into being like into like a parlay, and then it turns out no, she's actually the Doctor, and they're like, this can't be, how dare you fool my soldiers. But great chemistry there, I thought, and how they were handled. And I like that on the one hand they are treated as very serious and as a serious threat, but we also have a bit of humor with the Sontarans, because to a certain degree the Sontarans are a ridiculous race, like just the way they look. You know, the potato head people, then they have like this one very obvious weak spot on the back of their neck. And you know, like the joke with I really want to ride a horse and stuff like that. It's funny, but never to like a degree where you feel like they're making the Sontarans look super ridiculous. That's not what's happening here. So yeah, the main focus for this episode, Sontarans work great. I think they also influence basically every storyline in the episode, except for the one with Yas, which I'm going to talk about later. But overall, I had so much fun just watching the Sontarans again. They're so entertaining to watch, and it's great that we're finally getting like I feel like it's been a really long time since we got like a really good Sontaran focused episode where the Sontarans are like properly terrifying, not made fun of that way, and which is a lot of fun to see. Okay, so the main setting, like I said, is the Crimean War, where the Doctor, Yas, and Dan get zapped to after encountering their encounter with the Flux. But soon enough, Dan and Yas just disappear. Do we get an explanation as to why that happened? I don't think we did. I for a second I thought, oh no, they're getting integrated or something, but no, they get just. And Dan gets transported to that present day, his home in Liverpool, and Yas gets transported to somewhere completely different off-world, to like a weird temple. So the Doctor is on her own for this episode. And you know what? The Doctor and Jodie Whittaker's acting is fucking brilliant in this. You just have to say it. Her whole demeanor and how the Doctor works in this episode is so much fun to watch. I mean, it's almost always fun to see Jodie Whittaker play the Doctor, but I thought especially in this episode, her acting was just like off the charts, and the charisma, the techno babble, everything just worked really, really well. It was so much fun to watch her like work together with Mary Seacole, with the general from the army, how they discussed things, and how she was very like commanding and wanted really desperately to like not have these soldiers get murderized by the Sontarans. How she tried to take charge, but got really frustrated because no one would listen to her. But then she had like Mary Seacole as support. I just thought the Doctor worked really, really well in this episode, and I think Jodie Whittaker's Doctor works especially well if she's like put into these kind of quote unquote impossible situations where she has to improvise, where something happens that she has no influence over, like her companions suddenly disappear, so she doesn't have their support. She has to make do with what she has in the situation she finds herself in at that moment, and that works brilliantly, I think. And I'm not sure how good or bad that is, that her Doctor works best independently of her companions. Maybe it was just like this specific episode, but I don't know. Nevertheless, worked really, really well, and I just loved watching her in this episode. So our guest historical figure that the Doctor works with in this episode is Mary Seacole. I'm so glad Mary Seacole gets some attention. Yes, because everyone knows about Florence Nightingale. Everyone knows about Crimean War and Florence Nightingale, but barely anyone has ever heard of Mary Seacole. So I'm so glad that episode introduced her to a wider audience. And I'm gonna leave you like 2 links in the description to 2 wonderful Horrible Histories clips in case you want to know more about Mary Seacole, what she did, because more people deserve to know about her. So I'm glad that she was in this, and she had wonderful chemistry with the Doctor. I like how they made use of her, that she has not only like the medical knowledge that she applies to like the soldiers she's found on the battlefield, but specifically her skill like of observation and making note of what is happening, and she's very good at observing like what's happening around her, and that this skill that she is so good at specifically helps the Doctor as they like go out and try to observe like where the Sontarans are coming from. They observe their spaceships, and what Mary figures out with like that they need to basically hibernate every, 27 hours or something like that for a specific amount of time. This is what eventually helps them to defeat the Sontarans. It's not something that necessarily the Doctor figures out, it's something that the guest historical character has actually figured out previously, and then kind of expands on in then later when they go and observe the Sontarans. So I loved how they work together. I love that. It wasn't even that action heavy, like not with what Mary Seacole had to do. It was just like her being quick on the uptake, liking what the Doctor did, even though she was kind of confused by her, especially in the very beginning. But there was this sort of connection that they immediately kind of liked each other, and I guess Mary Seacole was kind of into it. You know, I like that she like gets to be out in the field, since this is kind of a thing. Like as she goes out onto the battlefield, tries to help people, and this is what she can do in this. And especially like that, you can see how much she's like come to enjoy the Doctor's companion when after the big battle between the British army and the Sontaran army, only like a couple of people are left alive, and the general has come back, and the Doctor is like, I need a pointy stick, and then she does like a cool military presentation, and they juggle like ideas around and everything, and the general is obviously still very confused, and Mary Seacole is just, shush, she's talking, I want to know what she's talking about, just everyone shush, she clearly knows what she's talking about, even though I don't understand all of it. So I thought that was cute, that was really funny, and it shows especially how much of an influence, and especially like charismatic influence the Doctor has on the people around her, and how she's able to just connect with people. And so I definitely like that the connection here between Mary Seacole and the Doctor. I like that we get like this sort of opposition with the general from the British Army, who clearly just does not want to listen to what the Doctor has to say. It is very much this sort of stiff upper lip British Army dude who thinks he knows what he's about to do and clearly knows how to handle his soldiers. And Doctor is just like, you're not about to engage Sontarans in open battle. Are you mental? Don't do that. And he's just like, please, I think I know how to handle like war. I've done this before. And he clearly has no idea. And just the visual image of like the Sontaran army and the British army just like coming over the hills, hundreds and thousands of soldiers on both sides, and then they just clash. And like the Sontarans say, it's an absolute massacre. They just absolutely murderize all of the British soldiers, and this is what wakes up the British general, naturally, as you would expect. But I like that he doesn't make like a full turnaround, because he becomes more accepting of the Doctor's leading position and what she has to say, so he's willing to listen to her and wants to know how they can defeat the Sontarans. But at the very end, when they go out and do that to like cut off the supply for the Sontarans, because then when they're in hibernation, you find out that the general had stocked up on like gunpowder and all that stuff, and just completely blows up all of the like Sontaran ships and the Sontaran soldiers that were left over on those spaceships. And it was like this classic moment of the Doctor had the situation in her hand. She had it figured out, and she knew how to get everyone out of there safe and sound, more or less, and had given the bad guys a chance to retreat. But there's just like that one, like a stick in the mud, who is still hung up on having lost against these and wanting to make up for his failure in war, and blows up and kills all of these Sontarans. And the Doctor just like turns around, is like, they were retreating, everyone was safe, they were gonna leave, why did you do that? And then like that, she specifically says, people like you sometimes make me question why I even bother protecting planet Earth, because that's just, it hits hard. But I think that's the right thing to do, because the Doctor is absolutely right. She's absolutely right about this, and we need moments like these, because humanity is often portrayed as like, you know, the pinnacle of, you know, creation, or whatever you want to call it. Like, we're the good guys, it's us versus the aliens, and yeah, some Sontarans are the bad guys, but that still doesn't give us, or more specifically the general in that case, the right to just blow up hundreds of soldiers who were prepared to retreat. So I like that the Doctor specifically points that out, and that we get to see that even the Doctor herself isn't always up to like agreeing with what humanity does, and that she's sometimes, like in this case, really tired of seeing people like the general act in such a way, even though they really didn't have to, but just because their bad feelings or their guilt or whatever it is just make them act so irrationally that you just can't understand it. And it's that classic, I had it figured out, I wanted to save everyone was safe, everyone was alive, and just gets completely screwed over. So I like that little moment there, and then she just like goes away, the TARDIS reappears, and she's just like, I have to leave. Mary Seacole, was nice to meet you. I like that little ending they have with the two of them. I hope we see Jill again. And then she like leaves. It goes back to the TARDIS. The TARDIS, by the way, still not looking great. It's still acting up. There's still like ooze coming out of the walls, and there are weird spike things. It's like the TARDIS is being infected by something, and it looks uncomfortably weird. And I hope the TARDIS is gonna be okay. She's like, the TARDIS has already been acting up in the previous episode. So, and I think the bad guys, like the Swarm, kind of hints at that they know something's weird with the TARDIS, but we don't specifically know yet why that is. But I'm assuming it maybe has to do something with the Swarm and the other people, the Flux. I don't know, something. But it's worrying that at the end of the day, a Doctor goes back into her TARDIS, and the TARDIS is filled with ooze. Okay, so that's the Doctor's storyline. The second storyline, which also has to do with the Sontarans, is what happens to Dan. And Dan is just Oh, I love Dan. He's such a delight. Just like I said in last week's episode, I love how easygoing he is. Like, he's just kind of there for it. He's like, yep, that's happening now. And he just like kind of goes off and does his thing, even though this is only like his second day, so to speak, on the TARDIS. He gets officially invited in this episode, you could argue, with the Doctor being like, okay, I'm gonna go pick up Yas. You wanna come with? He's just like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And he's barely even known the Doctor, and he just like goes out and infiltrates the Sontaran spaceship of his badass parents, by the way, save him and give him like this walk and just like hit them on the back of the head and just like Dan throughout the entire episode with the walk, just bang bang. Was good. It was fun to watch. Dan apparently rolled like a natural 20 on the stealth check because wow, no one sees him. He just sneaks his way through the compound. Then he gets caught like once, but the Sontarans miraculously, of course, don't manage to shoot him. But yeah, he just sneaks his way into the spaceship. And I like that he sort of like tries to film everything. Like he's quick on the uptake. He thinks about a lot of stuff. He's like, okay, I'm gonna film this for the Doctor because the Doctor would clearly know what all of this is. So I'm gonna record this. That was good. I like that. And then they're able to make contact on the Sontaran ship. And I just like the way Dan is able to just like breeze through these conversations, even though he doesn't really understand or know what's going on. He just like makes puns, or the people have a bit of a miscommunication because of their accent and dialect, and I just like that sort of stuff. It's very funny, and Dan is just super endearing. It's this right kind of, okay, this man has actually no idea of what the hell is going on, but he's just running with it. Like, he's the perfect example of that. He's not dumb. He's quick on the uptake. He knows what he instinctually should do in that situation. He doesn't question it, or he questions enough, but not too much. And he's willing to just do it because it's the right thing to do. Because I feel like that is really like a core character also of Dan's personality, that he just does this stuff because he thinks it's the right thing to do, and he's like, no one else would probably do this, and I'm here right now. And like he says to his parents, I've made some experience with aliens in the past 2 days, so might as well do this because no one else is gonna do it. And he just like runs in and does it, like without any question, without any like big heroic music or anything. It's just like what he does. And I love that, like how it's still kind of low-key how he acts and how he reacts to things that are going on around him. He just like takes it in stride and goes with it, and I like that. And as I'd hoped from the previous episode, him and, is the dog called Carnivista? Carnivista was the dog, right? Comes back, and I'm telling you, they're hinting at that these two are gonna build a friendship throughout this story arc. They just have to, like, at one point, the Sontarans are onto Dan, but then Carnivista comes in, guns are blazing, just and like, you still might assign, I don't like you, but you still might assign humans, and I'm gonna help you. And the two just kind of literally hit it off with the walk and with the laser axe and everything, and it's so much fun. And I just love their banter, like they're back to back, and they don't really like each other, but there is clearly some kind of respect or a little bit of affection for each other, where you can tell if Carnivista comes back in some of the next episodes. They're definitely building up on like a friendship. Maybe even, who knows, maybe Carnivista is going to die at some point trying to protect Dan, and Dan is going to be like, no, but I've really come to like you, you dog person, that sort of thing. I could totally see that coming, but I hope they're still building up on this relationship, because I love their banter and I love their chemistry. It's really, really fun to watch. And at the end of the day, the Doctor is able to make contact with Dan and TARDIS, and yeah, he gets the formal invitation, and he's like, I'm gonna go see you guys, you wanna come with? Yeah, sure. And then the TARDIS gets hijacked, and we jump to the place where Yas has been spending the episode, in that weird temple with the guy whose name I forgot just now, who saw the explosion of all the planets, who was on space station Rose. She's together with him there, and they have great chemistry. I think we only get to see them like for a couple of minutes together, but I think they really hit it off. I like the chemistry that's going on there, and they're brought there to repair something. And we see these statues of I think they're called Maury. That's something I remember, but I don't remember the name of the important characters. Sure, the Maury, who are from a planet called Time, and has something to do with like the Guardians of Time, something like that, probably. I'm having two theories on who the Maury might be, or what they're related to. Theory number one is that it's maybe connected to the timeless child thing, that they're maybe from the planet Doctor was originally, when she was like the little girl that was found. Maybe it has something to do with the timeless child. Or another theory which I read online, which was a YouTube comment, that someone suggested that they are maybe the original Weeping Angels, because they're not moving, they are somewhat in charge of time and what's going on there, and we haven't seen them blink, I think, so might be like the origins of the Weeping Angels, and we have seen Weeping Angels in the previous episode. That would sort of explain why the Weeping Angels are also there. Could see both of these things happening. Maybe something completely else is going to happen with the Maury. We don't know. We don't know what Chris Chibnall has planned. But they are there. And Yaz and her new friend are brought there to repair one of the hologram statue thingies, apparently, which is broken. But naturally they don't really know what to do. But then, zap in Swarm, Azure, and their Skeletor bodyguard, who was just sort of there. But yeah, the Swarm and his sister, they're back. And even though they have like this really cliche, like villain notion going on, like the way they're written, I just like their presence whenever they are in a scene. Like, it's probably because of the acting and the cool makeup and just like the general design and look of these aliens. But I just love their commanding presence in the room, the way they move and speak. It is kind of charismatic to a certain degree, even though, like I said, the writing, the stuff they're saying is not super special. It's like I said, very cliche villain-ish. But I like how they present themselves, how they immediately sort of take command of, as soon as they enter a room, and you're immediately sort of glued to whatever they're saying, with their weird disintegration power, which is still absolutely terrifying, by the way. You just feel immediately, not necessarily horrified, but you feel interested fascinated by what they're doing, what they're on about, why they're here, and what they have to do with like the Maury, why, like, what do they want with them, what kind of history do they have with them, how have they installed Yaz and her new friend into one of the Maury, and then apparently Yaz is getting disintegrated at the end. I mean, probably not, but something happened there. So I'm liking the villains. I'm hoping we get more backstory as the Flux storyline goes on. The Flux, by the way, wasn't really mentioned too much in this episode. We had like we had a quick conversation where the Sontarans mentioned that they, I think, somehow used the Flux or something like that to, like, it was kind of hard. It's kind of hard to explain, but they did mention that they had something to do with the Flux, or they somehow used it or something like that. So it does get mentioned, but it's not like as big of a presence as it was in the previous episode. So I'm kind of assuming maybe that comes back in like next week's episode, maybe that we get more on about what the Flux actually is. Since the Doctor now, her TARDIS is hijacked and she gets brought to that weird temple by Swarm and Azure. And the Doctor is just like completely baffled and flabbergasted by what's going on. Like, she has no idea what all of this is about, and she's told about the Maury and about the planet called Time. She's like, I don't know of a planet called Time, doesn't exist. Which, again, might be because it's the planet she was originally from, but she can't actually remember that because mind deletion, all of that used to happen with her in her pre-Hartnell incarnations. Maybe it has something to do with that, which would also kind of work with if the Swarm and his sister since he mentioned that he knows the Doctor, it would maybe work in the sense of that they are villains from like a previous lifetime that the Doctor can't remember, since they mentioned that in the previous episode. And maybe the Mori have something to do with that. So maybe it's about the timeless child in the Doctor's previous lives. I could totally see that coming, but we don't know yet. It's only episode 2. So to wrap this up with the absolutely terrifying final shot of just like Yaz being there, dressed up or whatever as one of the Mori statues, and the Swarm just going in there like... At first I thought they were gonna cut away because he was moving really slowly, his fingers. But just like the last frame, the last sound you hear before the episode ends is the snap. Just like... And that sound, I was like... oh, that's not good. Maybe they're gonna do like oh no, he didn't actually in time do the power, and the Doctor's gonna be like, no wait, I can help you. Still, kind of a terrifying note to end on, because what the hell is gonna happen to Yaz? Okay, yeah, so that's it for this very fast and vamply review of the second episode of Chapter 2 of Doctor Who Flux. Do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on this week's episode. If you talk about anything major, maybe give a spoiler warning. I don't know, just a recommendation. But yes, do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on this week's episode on Doctor Who Flux. So far, I would always love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.